WWE boss Vince McMahon has resigned following sex trafficking allegations from a former employee.
I did it all by myself. I didn't need any of you. I didn't need my family members.
We all know that Vince McMahon is the reason why WWE became a huge success, but he has been involved in numerous cover-ups and controversies, mostly in the name of greed. He's made WWE the biggest wrestling organization in the world, but at what cost? From the infamous steroid scandal to allegations of inappropriate behavior and bullying, this is the shady side of Vince McMahon. Number 1. Ashley Massaro. The late WWE Diva Search winner Ashley Massaro also had her name come up as part of the summer Vince McMahon news cycle. Specifically, her ex-boyfriend Paul London accused Vince of obsessively pursuing her while she worked under him in WWE. In his words, "I remember many times when she would be crying to me because Vince was proposing her to fly on the jet with them. Kevin Dunn and others too. Every now and then they'd always put the divas up at like the TV hotel or whatever. He'd be knocking on her door and trying to get her to answer." Former WWE Tag Team Champion also said he was shocked that these allegations are only coming out now, but it just goes to show how afraid people are of losing their jobs. Number 2. Recent allegations. Recently, Vince McMahon has been accused by a former female employee known as Janelle Grant of sex trafficking and assault. According to Janelle, Vince forced her to get intimate with him and his friends. The lawsuit states that Janelle was hired by Vince in 2019 after her parents passed. According to the allegations, he took advantage of her vulnerability, made her a sexual symbol in WWE, and her life became a nightmare. According to the lawsuit, he greeted her in his underwear, touched her, repeatedly asked for hugs, and spent hours sharing intimate details about his personal life. He even shared her naked photos with other WWE employees and wrestlers. To say this is messed up is an understatement, but the disturbing part about all these allegations is that they are never ending. According to the Wall Street Journal, Vince paid about $12 million to silence 4 women about his infidelity and sexual misconduct. Well, if the allegations are true, I guess we can all understand why he's so concerned about making money. Number 3. Thanos of the wrestling industry. You can understand why fans name Vince the Thanos of the wrestling industry. He destroyed the careers of many deserving wrestlers in a snap. There's a reason why the legendary Bruno Sammartino didn't like Vince in his lifetime. He hated how McMahon used to fire wrestlers, control content, and hire girls to objectify them. Even the co-creator of the show Dark Side of the Ring agrees that Vince is the ultimate villain of the wrestling world. He is rich and evil, and we all know that being a billionaire means never having to say you're sorry, or even acknowledging why you might have to.
I apologize, you son of a...
Number 4. The Ring Boy Scandal. This one has been covered up by the WWE as much as possible. In the early 90s, the WWE faced a controversy involving allegations of sexual abuse and exploitation of underage boys in the wrestling industry. Tom Cole, a former ring boy, filed a lawsuit against Terry Garvin and Mel Phillips, exposing a culture of exploitation and abuse within the company. Cole's lawsuit detailed his alleged sexual assault by Garvin and inappropriate advances by Phillips. Over time, more ring boys came forward with identical stories, shedding light on a group of individuals abusing their power. Another prominent figure that was implicated was Pat Patterson. Tom made disturbing allegations stating he'd look at your crotch and lick his lips while talking to you. He'd squeeze your backside. Jake Roberts confirmed the truth of the scandal, narrating disturbing stories he heard at the time. The allegations prompted resignations, Patterson, Garvin, and Phillips leaving the WWE in March of 1992. Despite defensive maneuvers by Vince, the scandal tarnished the company's reputation. Journalists like Phil Mushnick and Dave Meltzer reported on the scandal, and Vince denied the charges. Despite initial reluctance, he went public with the allegations, leading to legal action. Cole sought justice and approached journalists, resulting in a publication of a New York Post column in '92 exposing the scandal. In negotiations with Vince, Tom accepted a settlement of $50,000 in back pay and a job in the WWE's crew department. The initial $750,000 demand was dropped, and the lawsuit was resolved. Number 5. Bullying employees. From body-shaming wrestlers to throwing nuts at his employees, Vince has a long history of bullying people backstage. Jim Ross has been one of Vince's targets for decades. Back in 2001, Vince went as far as humiliating Ross on TV, making him kiss his backside. But one of the worst things Vince did to Ross was making fun of his health. In 1994, Ross was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a condition that causes facial paralysis. Unfortunately, soon after he was let go from his job. Ross shared that Vince fired him in a not-so-kind manner. JR said some tension backstage led to his firing, but he didn't pursue a legal case against it. According to former WWE agent Jim Cornette, the mockery of JR's condition began with the writers, and Vince made it worse by joining the bullying. Cornette explained that Vince would publicly do hurtful things to his employees and find it amusing. This mistreatment didn't stop in the writers' room. Vince took it to TV, mimicking JR's facial paralysis on air, continuing the bullying cycle. Number 6. Objectifying women. Well, you won't be shocked to learn that Vince used to hire women based on their looks and bodies. We all grew up seeing women wearing revealing clothes and engaging in intimate actions to seduce men in the WWE, and of course, those were Vince's orders. He even made Trish Stratus act like a dog on television. After her departure from the company, Athena made headlines for disclosing that several female talents in WWE were told to dress like NXT Women's Champion Mandy Rose. Nia Jax supported her claims, tweeting about how higher-ups hire women just to objectify them. Moreover, there were allegations that the Fabulous Moolah mistreated many female wrestlers, and sometimes left them with influential men in the business like Vince, who allegedly further abused them. According to the allegations, she took advantage of the wrestlers she sent to Vince by ensuring they only got paid through her. Vince paid the Fabulous Moolah for the matches her wrestlers were part of, even if she wasn't wrestling, and she would keep up to 50% of the payment before giving it to her wrestlers. Number 7. Steroid scandal. We all know how much Vince loves money, and he will do anything to get it. After spending a few years in the business, Vince knew that he had to make his wrestlers look ideally strong and giant. For this reason, allegations emerged that he started supplying them with anabolic steroids. In the early 90s, Vince faced legal trouble from the US Department of Justice over illegal activities involving various drugs, including steroids. These charges could have put Vince in prison for up to 11 years and cost him a $1.5 million fine. In a trial lasting 18 days in '94, famous wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, and Rick Rude testified. Even though the case was dropped after Vince paid a significant amount, it cast a shadow over the wrestling industry to this day. Since then, there have been many cases of wrestlers passing at a young age, and steroid abuse is often seen as a big problem in the world of wrestling. Number 8. Wild storylines. We all love the wild WWE storylines at some point in our lives, and some of them were hilarious, but at times they got quite problematic. Of course, WWE has a team of writers who suggest storylines, but Vince always has the final say on what goes on TV. Vince McMahon, who is the least controversial person on earth, approved storylines like a race war between white and black wrestlers, used miscarriages as entertainment, and a weird age-related plot where an old woman supposedly gives birth to a hen. There's even a storyline Vince considered, and thank God it didn't happen, where his on-screen character would be revealed as the father of his daughter Stephanie's child.
My dad did approach me about wanting to be the father of my baby. Then he came up with the idea for Shane to actually be the father of my baby, my brother.
Number 9. Owen and Martha Hart. When you work with colleagues for a long time, they become like family. As a boss, supporting them is essential. However, with Vince, his priority is always the wrestling show, even if it means someone getting hurt or worse in the ring. In 1999, the wrestling community was shocked by the death of Owen Hart. He fell to the ring when the equipment bringing him down malfunctioned. A tragic incident happened in front of a live audience. Thankfully, it didn't air on TV.
Unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died.
Despite the accident, Jeff Jarrett was expected to perform right after, even though he was in tears. When asked about the safety of the harness at a press conference, Vince snapped at a reporter saying,
First of all, I resent your tone. This was a tragic accident. It's a tragic accident. Don't try and put yourself in the spotlight here, okay?
In an interview with the New York Times, Bret Hart, Owen's brother, called Vince's decision to continue with the show very cold-blooded.
I think if Vince McMahon had dropped Shane McMahon from the ceiling, and he splatted on the mat, I don't think he would have scraped him off the mat and sent the next match out. I actually know firsthand from the wrestlers involved that they wheeled my dead brother past.
Owens' widow Martha was also hurt by Vince's horrifying move. She couldn't believe that this was the value of her husband's life. After Martha asked for financial compensation after her husband's death, Vince McMahon had the audacity of filing a lawsuit against her. Number 10. The mystery surrounding Nancy Argentino. In May 1983, Nancy Argentino, the girlfriend of WWE superstar Jimmy Superfly Snuka, died from severe brain injuries. Her body showed signs of physical abuse, prompting the pathologist to recommend investigating it as a homicide. Superfly Snuka was the only one with her, initially claimed she fell, but his story later changed. He had been arrested a few months earlier for assaulting her, and police saw him dragging her down a hallway during a domestic violence call. Surprisingly, no charges were pressed. Snuka continued his career, having a famous steel cage match in Madison Square Garden a few months later. He was a lucrative asset for Vince.
The Hall of Fame wrestler has just been charged with the 1983 murder of his 23-year-old Brooklyn girlfriend, Nancy Argentino.
30 years later, Snuka was charged with third-degree murder of Nancy. However, in January 2017, he was diagnosed mentally unfit to stand trial and died 2 weeks later after his battle with stomach cancer. Like I said in the beginning of the video, Vince McMahon has surely achieved a ton of professional success. It begs the question that might sound ironic due to Vince's love for money. The man certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way. Speaking of mistakes, over the years, multiple wrestlers have ruined their careers with one single mistake. Check out this video to find out more.